Okay, so welcome back everyone, and as you can see here, I have another tier maker as promised. This is in response to the year 1 and year 2 pass content concluding. I just wanted to update this tier list because the last time I did this was actually in the end of phase 6. However, we've had phase 7 so far, and also the conclusion of the year 2 pass, which is phase 8. So I will be ranking these, as I said in my prior tier list, in a chronological fashion, as if I was playing these from Michigan all the way through the Belozersk Glades, map by map in order 100%. So a little bit about me, I have about 3,000 hours in the game. I just passed it the other day, and I've been playing these maps multiple times. Some of these I've played 3-4 times already, and I'm going to give you my personal ranking where I feel these maps fall, and later I'm actually going to disclose to you guys my favorite maps as well. So as you can see from this video and the previous tier list video, there might be a few changes in there, but however, I'm not going to go through each individual map in detail like I did on that tier list for the ones that I have covered. But if I've changed something around, I will actually tell you why I changed it there, and then we'll talk about that. So you guys are free to disagree. Please go do your own tier maker list. I've been seeing these a lot recently on Reddit and stuff like that, and I love that people are doing this. So this is going to be my personal tier maker. So with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so now we're going to start this out here. Let's build this out. Starting off with Michigan, we're going to do Black River. Black River is easy. I've mentioned this before. I think Black River was hard when you first start the game. However, now I've been playing the game so long, it's just really nostalgic to play all these older maps again. And I just honestly love them. So next, I think Smithfield Dam goes up here in a moderate easy, trending more toward the easy. I put it a little bit above these two because Island Lake, while it does have some deep mud and stuff like that, there's not a lot of huge ups and downs like Smithfield Dam has, and some of these missions where you're delivering medium logs and such, and even going down into the quarry can get pretty rough, especially if you don't have upgraded tires, and also if you're playing chronologically. The best vehicle that you possibly could have is probably the White Western Star, just from its versatility, its balance and such, but you also have good trucks like the Twin Steer to get you through that area as well. So next, I'm going to say Drummond Island. I'm actually going to throw Drummond Island up here in a moderate easy. This is a change. I changed this from easy to moderate easy on my last tier maker. I had it on easy, but thinking back on it, Drummond Island has a couple hard missions. One is where you're actually fishing some material out of the ocean or out of kind of a gorge or like a huge river or something like that up there on the map. And you have to get really close to the edge. I know people have fallen off there. There's a lot of tipping areas back there. And then also there's a mission where you have to deliver cargo containers from shipping dock. And that can get pretty tippy coming back through. So that's just a difficult one. So I thought that Drummond Island actually edged out of the easy category, moved up to the moderate easy, but I still think it trends more toward that straight up easy because there's just a lot of things to do, a lot of bridges to build and such in Drummond. So moving on, we're going to talk about Alaska now. Northport, like I said, pretty easy maps, followed by Mountain River. I love these maps. They have the largest road networks in this whole game, which is why I think I love these maps so much, because you can use some of the lesser trucks in the game, like your highway trucks, to just move around the map really fast, especially Mountain River, White Valley as well, and even Northport. They just, they have these road networks that are super large that you can get to these areas and deliver cargo really, really quick. It's just a really fun map for me. Okay, moving on to the last of the base game maps. This is going to be Drowned Lands. I think Drowned Lands falls right up in here to moderate easy, just because I think probably more toward moderate, because now you're trending into this deeper mud. The topography is getting worse as well. You're going up and down hills. You're having super mud, and all these type of things are being added. Also, there's some new game mechanics being added to the game with the seismic vibrator add-on as well. So that aspect, it just was a little bit harder than these base game maps. But however, I'm not ranking these, like, I'm not going to put this up here because I think this is harder I'm just going to put these in here. This is not me moving these around. I'm just telling you they're going in these categories. Next, I definitely think that Zemnogorsk goes in here as well. Zemnogorsk probably trends more toward the moderate side. Probably some of the thicker mud in this region in general. It's just hard getting to different sides of the map unless you know good routes. And if you need to know some good routes about all the year 1 pass maps, go to my Route Runner series on the page. I think that'll help you out a lot with getting to and from areas, to those major hubs and across the maps. Next, I'm going to throw quarry up here as well. Quarry, you have to go down into the quarry, so it's kind of like going down into the quarry in Smithville. That kind of makes things tricky as well. There is a lot of topography. It's not a huge map, but I did feel it was kind of moderate easy because, you know, at this point you're having some really good trucks like the Tega, the Dan, and they can really carry you through. The Rift was added right before Phase 1. I like the Rift a lot. There's no garage there. It actually shows a lot of different topography up there. The wooded forest going up into the high areas. You have the bogs down in the lower areas. It's a pretty fun map. I definitely enjoyed it. Probably my second time around. A little bit better than the first, of course. All right, now we're going to start with Phase 1. Phase 1, we're going to have Amandra, and I think Amandra is probably up here in the very hard. I think every time I play Amandra, it does get easier just because I know the map. Last time I played it in my hardcore playthrough, I pretty much breezed through it, but I'm trying to base this off of my own personal perspective, but also what the general population also thinks about this as well. But I think overall, in my mind, I think Amandra's still kind of a hard map, so it's going to stay up there in the hard. That's just where I feel it goes. Next, we're going to talk about Lake Cove. Let's see, Lake Cove. Lake Cove goes up into hard. I think if you don't know good routes on both of these maps, it makes them harder, right? Because if you don't know how to get across the ice and get to the west side of the map, the north side of the map on the ice shards and not falling into them, it makes it a lot easier. So like per your own perspective, you could possibly move these down a slot each if you know these maps. But overall, the topography of these, the super snow, the falling of the ice, these were all brand new things. Also the prototype exploration unit that you have to drag around with a scout. This can get pretty tough and tedious. So, and then also the use of chain tires in some areas that you need them. You can bypass them without, but just a whole different dynamic has been brought into to these places. So I thought these went up here into the very hard and hard. Okay, moving on to Phase 2, which is going to be the Yukon region. I think the Flooded Foothills goes up into hard just because the Flooded Foothills has really low boggy areas that they have missions down in, and then they have a lot of missions that go up into the mountains that are very rugged, very icy, a lot of tippy areas, and if you're not careful, yeah, you can definitely find yourself overturned, stuck, and needing some support. So I felt that these two maps actually needed to stay up there. This one has a lot of boggy areas as well, a lot of super snow up top. You're constantly shuttling cargo from these areas that you're trying to derive cargo from to build cabins, complete these huge missions. This is a very heavy, intensive cargo task contracts in these two regions, which is why I think I like these a lot too as well. But they generally are pretty tough. Okay, moving on to Phase 3. Phase 3 is going to be Wisconsin. Wisconsin, I think Black Badger Lake goes into moderate. Black Badger Lake has a lot of really good trail running spots on, you know, different sides of the maps up into the more regions that have higher heights, more higher in elevation. But down low, this is just a really boggy map. As you can see, the lodestar here in the picture is over by this church, and that bog over on the southwestern side of the map, or even just the western side of the map in general. It's just really boggy, kind of tedious to get through, so I felt it needs to stay in the moderate. Overall, I didn't feel it was too hard. I did feel it had a pretty good fun factor as well. Okay, moving on here. Let's see. Grainwoods River. I think Grainwoods falls into moderate. I don't think it's that hard, but I did throw it into moderate just because there are some missions that you have to go down into the rivers to get cargo. And also there's some new things as well that are brought forth with crafting and such like that. And even trying to get down beneath these bridges to tow some things out. You know, there is some uneven terrain. Also, there is some tough spots down there. So I felt it was pretty safe, that it was like not a hard map, but it wasn't an easy map. It was right in the middle. So, you know, it has that blend of hard, easy, and also very, very pleasurable map as well. All right, so the next map is actually going to be Phase 4. This is the conclusion of the Year 1 pass. This is going to be the Amur maps, and we'll quickly breeze through these because I've spoken about all these maps in the entirety on my last video, and the link in that will be in the description for the prior tier list video where I actually open up the maps and do some explaining on all these ones, and I'm kind of just breezing through. But don't worry, when we get to the new maps that are after Phase 6, I will go into the map and just kind of talk about them here and there as well. Also, one thing I wanted to disclose is I'm not feeling too well, so that's probably why you hear my voice is a little bit raspy today, so bear with me, I apologize. Anyways, let's start this. So Urska River, I think Urska River goes up into hard as well, because starting out Urska River, there is a ton of things that you have to do to open up bridges to be able to move about this map in a fashion to where you can actually complete tasks. So you have to do I think it's the warehouse troubles, and getting into that bog, even getting up into the areas that you have to craft metal beams. I do not recommend doing that. I would rather just shuttle all my cargo from Cosmodrome, shuttle all the metal beams there, but the warehouse troubles will get you enough metal beams to get most of those bridges done, so definitely use that task. But overall, I think Urska was pretty tough. A lot of really, really sticky areas, a lot of topography, going down into a quarry to get some rocket parts. It was very slow going, so I felt it was definitely a hard map. Right behind that, I think, is Cosmodrome. Now, some would agree that probably say that this needs to stay here. Some would say it probably can slide down into the moderate. I was a little bit conflicted about this. I felt that because of all the scout missions that were in Cosmodrome in general, and having to climb that ice hill and stuff like that, and there's a lot of broken shards, ice areas that you can get caught up in, and the overall nature of just having to slug through some super conditions to move all those features over to other maps, which are the metal beams, because I did not craft any. I felt this one probably should stay as a hard as well. And then also unlocking the Zix 605R was a pretty hard task in itself. For those who have done it, you probably understand that frustration. So I think it stays here. I think other people could probably shift it up or down. And I think you pretty much be a safe assumption there. Okay, moving on to Cherno-Kamensk. I actually think Cherno goes into moderate. The thing is, Cherno is another map you can probably throw up into hard if you want. But I think after you clear all the wreckages that are in the map when you first come in, and this is where I talk about shuttling those metal beams over to Cherno to open up the map, open up the garage. But I think after you open up the map and you open up the garage, getting to different areas in Cherno is actually not that tough. It actually just reminds me of Alaska 2.0. It actually was a pretty nice map to do. There's a lot of cargo to move in Cherno, and I moved it pretty quickly because there's a good road network and also some pretty good shortcuts as well. So go check out that Route Runner series as well. Okay, finally, for the Year 1 pass, Northern Aegis installation. I think Northern Aegis goes up in here in hard. This, I think, is the hardest map in the game, period. I've talked about this in its entirety on my last video. Go check it out. I actually open up the map and talk about some things, but not having a trailer store, having a fuel station that is really out of reach, you're essentially bringing in everything that you need support-wise to finish this map. And it just takes a lot of effort, a lot of driving, a lot of patience. There's a ton of topography, a lot of frozen ice, super snow, you name it, it got it. It's pretty much like a Mondra 2.0. So this, I believe, is the hardest map in the game. Okay, so now let's move on to the Year 2 pass here. This is phases 5 through 8. And the first of those is actually going to be the Don, Russia Federation. So I think Antonovsky Nature Reserve is a moderate map, and I think the Factory Grounds are moderate maps. These are actually super small maps. They're actually about as big as Drummond Island apiece. And everything was just like a puzzle. You had to do one thing to be able to unlock the next thing, especially when the chain missions to unlock the trucks, the 2 Tatra trucks that you get here. Not a whole lot of tasks and contracts in this one, but it did take a while to get to different sides of maps because well, you do have some pretty bad conditions, and I think Antonovsky's harder than the factory grounds for the sole sake of having to move logs to create wooden planks, and how many times you had to do that going through that terrain because you're going up into the mountains. It's kind of muddy, and then it's kind of tippy, and then also moving those big trailers out of there. That was pretty rough. Unless you have just a super truck and you pull the Zix. I didn't do that. I tried to use something lesser until the point I got so frustrated that I just said, hey, I'm going to get the Zix. Got the Zix, pulled it right out of there, but I'm sure there's other vehicles that can do just as well, like a Kola or such like that. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's move on here to phase 6. This is going to be Maine. This is one of my favorite DLCs, I think. I think the lowland goes up here to moderate. I think it has enough difficulty and then enough things in it that are easy, that are good for drivers to just make it an overall fun experience. You start the garage and it needs to be repaired. You don't have a trailer store, so essentially you have to set up your whole fleet first to start unlocking those things. So you're trying to do all those things to be able to upgrade your trucks, repair them, get trailer store working and such like that. So it's just a different dynamic. But I think once you understand that you can navigate the center of the map and actually go through that waterway and not have issues, you can really get to one side of the map very easily. But it also has a lot of topography, a lot of ups and downs, tippy scenarios, which I think they need to add more of. And they did, and we'll talk about that here shortly. But I really feel like it had a good enough difficulty where it didn't suck the fun out of it, like Northern Ages installation, but it also was easy enough to be able to traverse through things with relative ease. I don't want to say too easy, but I think it's just the right touch. Yellow Rock. The thing about Yellow Rock is I actually think Yellow Rock was kind of hard, but I wanted to move it to the moderate category, but I threw it up here into the hard because if you don't know about these secret shortcuts and roadways in the Yellow Rock Maine Forest, and actually this is going to be a map that I'm going to go in here again and show you. I know I said I wasn't going to do this, but grabbing my controller, so if you hear anything, it's probably my controller. So with Yellow Rock, it has a huge road network, right, that kind of goes through, but what you don't know is a lot of these little back roads are all little trails that you can actually go through. And if you follow this way, you're going to run into these broken ice shards, and this is where you kind of have to shuttle your cargo through with bigger trucks that can go through ice shards and then move your actual workhorse vehicles. However, all these little areas that you see that don't have trees in them, these are actually roadways. And a good way to get from north to south actually would be coming through this gateway, and then you come up through here, go this way, and you actually just go right through these paths all the way up, and then keep following it, and you can get right north really quick. And there's a lot of these pathways in here, and some of them there's some little bridges and stuff like that that you could tip over. So, and then there's some up and downs through here. But if you don't know about these things, this map can seem very daunting, very hard, and that's why I actually put it into the hard category. Was I just felt that you don't know these shortcuts and these ways to get to other sides of the map very quickly, and those maps kind of seem hard. Also, you can go this way to get through, and there's these little paths you can pick your way through these parts, but that's just a little tidbit there. Okay, so let's move on here. Now, this is going to be all brand new content that from phase 7 and on, and I will go into the map and kind of talk about these in a little bit of detail. First, we're going to talk about Tennessee. Tennessee only has one map. It's called the Burning Mill. This is where they implemented the what's it called, racing, which I wasn't too big of a fan of. As you know, whoever is watching my channel, you probably already know that from watching my streams. So we will go in here and talk about this, but let me actually go to the garage so it'll actually allow me to zoom out. For some reason, when you're at a different garage, it won't allow you to actually zoom out. So All right, sweet. So here is the Burning Mill. So as you can see, the Burning Mill has, I thought it was a really good map. I thought it had a lot of topography, a lot of mountainous terrain that I loved here on the east side of the map. Shuttling cargo around, you are watching out for your balance 24/7. All the time. You're concerned about, flipping your truck over, which I think is good. I think it's a good way to go for the SnowRunner series, instead of just adding mud textures and making us hold the throttle down for long periods of time, or just using our winch nonstop over and over and over. So I really felt this was an improvement. The visuals on this map are phenomenal. I love them. It also has some boggy areas down through here, some crossings. These areas down here in the south get pretty rough. I'm not really sure why you deconstruct the bridge here. That kind of confused me, why we did that. There was a bridge in place and then we deconstruct it. Not really sure, but that's how it is. And also you have the racing things. You can go test your truck out. However, there just wasn't a lot of missions total. And some of the missions were, collecting solar panels, as you can see. All the missions are done. I don't know why they reappeared, but there was just not a lot of areas to get cargo from. Essentially, you are literally getting cargo right from here. Every time you're crafting it or just generating it, and then you're just taking it to a place. And I didn't really find that fun, because it was like an over and over. I'm always coming down this path, or I'm going down this path, or this one as well. So it's like 3 times, 3 ways, multiple sets of cargo. I did think that the racing was okay in some scenarios. The solo ones just seemed like regular contests. But the thing is, when you have to do co-op in SnowRunner, you have to depend on somebody. So I had actually to depend on Max Power to help me get my 100%. I didn't think that was a good way to go for the series. But overall, I think these maps were just a moderate map. I don't think they were too hard. There wasn't any areas where I felt like, hey, I need to bring out like a Zix, a Kolob, or a Cat 745C, or an Azov Antarctic to get me out. I used like the Paystar with a trailer on stream, and I was just lugging things around pretty good. So yeah, I think it was a good map. I really wish there were 2 maps, less racing, more cargo, and I think it would have been spot on with where SnowRunner needs to be. Okay, so let's move on here, and this is going to be the conclusion of the year 2 pass. This is the Belozersk Glades. This is my prediction of these maps were, I thought that the Burning Mill was going to be similar to Wisconsin from my previous video. It wasn't similar to Wisconsin. It was essentially very different. They went a whole different direction with racing, which I did not foresee. And then also, I thought Phase 8 was really going to be another Amur. However, they made it really, really good, because they didn't make it actually too hard, and the fun factor went up, because when there's you have a difficulty factor that's relatively, I don't want to say low, but right in the middle, it allows you to use trucks that you normally wouldn't use on maps like Amur. So I think I was totally wrong on my prediction on that. So thank you, Saber, for making a good moderate map. And that's where we're going to start here, is throwing these up here into, I think the only map here that goes into the moderate easy, I think is going to be Crossroads. And we'll talk about Crossroads here. I'll jump into this. Let's go global, Crossroads. And I will actually go into the garage. Hopefully it lets me zoom out this time. Okay. So Crossroads. Crossroads is a map that I did not expect to have a big road network. As you can see, there's a road network that literally runs across the map, east to west, and then one that runs north to south here on the western side of the map. And then another roadway that I think is really not a roadway, but you can travel on, is actually this this railway can be treated as a roadway if you want to. Something I really liked about these maps was they were never super boggy, and really only some areas where you had to do river crossings were they really boggy. Some of these trails really were, they felt like the western part of the lowlands, where you're always worried about your balance. these areas that you're going through, they're not necessarily muddy, but they are very uneven, especially like over here and such like that. So there has been times I tip cargo over because I'm not paying attention, and you're going through this, you know, lighter dirt road, and all of a sudden you get tipped over. So I thought that was really cool. Some things I didn't like actually were that the trailer stores were, you know, half to almost 3/4 of the way across the map. Here it's not too bad because you can just take a shortcut right through, hit the road, go to the trailer store. But I think it's very convenient to have a trailer store at your garage, in my opinion. And something that I didn't like about these maps as well, there's only 2 trailer stores. One is on here and then the other is on Heartlands. So it kind of makes it so you have a logistical nightmare, especially with all the farming. So anyways, I thought this was a good map. I thought the pulling of the windmill out of here was really nice. It wasn't super tough. It was just a good experience of pulling both of these out of here. And yeah, I think Crossroads really wasn't that hard. I think you can use a lot of the North American trucks and you would be just fine. Okay, but anyways, I think you could either put the Crossroads up into either moderate or moderate easy, but I think it stays into the moderate easy, probably trending more toward moderate in my opinion. Okay, so I think Harvest Corp goes up here into moderate. I think Heartlands does too, and then I think the Institute does as well. I think Heartlands is probably harder than them all, and I'll talk about this in a little bit of detail. Okay, so now in my playthrough, I actually went to the Institute second, and the Institute doesn't have a trailer store, it doesn't have a garage, and then also a lot of its contracts and tasks are unlocked, or they are locked behind other tasks and contracts on other maps. So I actually found out after I completed this map, which I do think this is really one of my favorite maps actually. But when I completed this, I noticed that I needed to go to Heartlands first and then come here, and that was my mistake. So I did admit that on stream because I had to come back here and bring, you know, cargo and my trucks back here. But anyways, I think this is a really good map. As you can see, it has a long road network that goes right through this map as well, all the way from north to south. Very easy to get north to south on here. You have a small road network here. You cannot cross this. I wish we could build this out. This would have been great to have. But also there's a road network that goes to the Heartlands as well. This side of the map right here, I think is beautiful. Honestly, I think this route right here, going over this little stream, was beautiful. I think I was on stream when I was playing this and I loved it. These river crossings on this map are not really too bad. There's only, I think, one that kind of bugged me a little bit, but I don't think they're too bad. You can get through them at relative ease. I was really using NA trucks. I think I used the NF 1430 on this one, so it has no differential locking, and I was flying through this stuff with relative ease, and I just thought this was a good balanced map. So that is the Institute. Next, I want to talk about Heartlands before we get into the last map. Heartlands is kind of cool. I think it's definitely a moderate map. I think it's probably one of the harder maps for Belozersk Glades, and something that I kind of rubbed me the wrong way is essentially the garage being way down here, and then also the trailer store being way up here that you have to drive through just to get to this thing, and you have to open this up as well. So it's not opened. You have to do missions to open it. So that was kind of a tough thing as well. And just like Phase 5, which is the Dawn region, you're doing a lot of missions to unlock different things. So kind of like opening things up like a puzzle per se. Warehouses, trailer stores, production sites, etc. You're doing a lot of it. Another thing I did like about this was the road network. As you can see, goes north to south pretty much. You do have a lot of river crossings, but you do have a lot of road networks to get yourself going pretty fast to move across the map at pretty good paces. So I think all the river crossings were kind of tough, especially in some of the NA trucks, especially when you have to rescue some things down here. But overall, I think it had a lot of tippy terrain. I would say tippy trails instead of just heavy mud, which I think is favorable. But yeah, I think in general, the farming really really wasn't my piece of cake, or really wasn't my thing there. I think after a few missions, I just got a little bit over it. And lastly, we're going to talk about Harvest Corp. This is the fourth and final map, and this is where you actually move the cargo up to here, which is the windmill. You move this from the crossroads all the way up here, and I loved that final mission. I used the P16. It went like a breeze. The P16 did really well. You can tell the developers tested these routes because I drove right through the crossroads in some of those some of these dirt paths, and it was really nice that, you know, I wasn't getting hung up on things left and right. So really good job on that, Saber. I think, you know, dragging those huge trailers around and getting them stuck nonstop and playing winch runner is not really a fun thing. I'd rather just pull it through and I don't know, have a good time, make it a long pull. And this was a long pull, so probably like a 15-minute mission of just driving. So I thought that was really cool. Harvest Corp is a good map. I think this was actually where I finished out. Not a lot of really bad areas in here. Even these crossings here weren't bad. I pretty much flew through these. This is actually not even a bad crossing as well. You just can drive right through here, especially after you fix it. There's like logs in here. I thought that was a really cool thing they did with making those little log bridges as well. These pathways that go all through here, you can tip your truck over pretty easily. And there's also they have these little wood planks that go over these little ways and stuff like that I thought was a really cool touch to this. So Saber, good job on actually making these trails really cool, making them a little bit tippy as to be a challenge aspect instead of just, you know, us rushing through the maps, getting into mud and, you know, putting low plus on, winching, and then getting out and then flying again. I think these were just really good trail running maps. So that essentially is it. I really think Harvest Corp definitely was my second favorite. I think the Institute was my favorite, and then Crossroads, and then I think the Harvest Corp was last. So that is the conclusion of my tier maker. As you can see, guys, I filled this out. Hopefully this is good for you guys. I hope you guys agree with some of this. You probably won't, but go make your own tier maker. Let me know what you think. And now I'm going to talk about my favorite maps from year 1 and the year 2 pass. So let's get after it. All right, so at 3,000 hours, my last video, I think I was around like 2,300 hours, and that was back in, I think, March or May when I first made my first tier list video going up to phase 6. And in this one, you'll see a lot more changes, I think, than my tier list, because I think I've been enjoying some maps a little bit more than I have previously. So we'll talk about those changes here, but I'm going to quickly fill this one out. I'm not going to jump into the actual map and show you guys things unless I really feel like it and I have time, because I want to keep this video rather short because I know these can get rather extensive. So let's get started here. We're going to go from the D category all the way up to S. I'm going to fill this out. Let's see. Northern Aegis. Definitely did not enjoy that as much. I think there are enjoyable factors about these two maps. However, I think some parts of them just suck the fun out of it, as I mentioned in my previous tier list video. So that link will be in the description below if you want to look at those and see what I said about these in further detail. But I think like I said, there were some fun aspects of these two maps, but in general, I think it was more like, hey, let's just get this done and move on. So I know there are some people that do like these maps, and that's awesome, man. I'm glad you do. But just for me personally, they just weren't too fun for me. Now, here's where the new content starts to come in as we move forward. This is going to be Burning Mill. I'm actually going to put Burning Mill here in the D category. Now, like I said on my tier list, the hardest maps in the game, I ranked this about a moderate, and now I did have I very much had fun in this map on some of the areas where you had to go up into the mountains. Some of the contests that I did by myself were okay. There wasn't a lot of cargo pulling. I think, you know, pulling the solar panels was pretty cool. That was a cool little aspect, but I think overall I had the most fun going up into the mountains and pulling cargo through there and just having having that challenge of not tipping my vehicle over in that harsh terrain up there on the east side of the map, I think that is really what made the game fun in Phase 7. Other than that, I think the racing aspect and having to do co-op really tanked it for me. And I think also one of the bigger things that kind of supersedes that is there was only one map. Saber came out and said there wasn't going to be 2 maps. That was really, really odd that they did that. There are some reasons, there are some rumors that I heard. I'm not going to get into all that stuff right now, but I think they definitely redeemed themselves in Phase 8, which we will talk about here coming up. But yeah, overall, I do think there was some fun aspects of the Burning Mill. Tennessee, I really had better hopes for it because I do love those North American maps. So let's move forward. All right, so now talk about the factory grounds. I think factory grounds still sits at a C. I did enjoy these. They were rather small. I think there was some aspects I didn't like, but I do think I did generally enjoy those. A little bit smaller maps. I don't think I really cared that they were super small. I just think that there were some things that were just a little bit tedious. And then, you know, I had some glitches here and there with the towers at the end, which resolved themselves. But I do think these were good maps. I don't think they definitely were better than some of these I'm gonna list though. Okay, so let's move on to actually Lake Cove. I think Lake Cove sits at a C. Like I said previously in my hardest map tier list here on the video, if you know how to get across these maps on the ice, you can do that very quickly. I think that make the fun factor go up on over Amandra, because in Lake Cove, if I could get to the other side of the map and then start doing my mission really quickly, that helped. I think Lake Cove was pretty balanced after the fact that, you know, I understood how to get to those areas, so I did have some fun there. Definitely didn't. It was a big change from, you know, hauling massive amounts of cargo to being more of an exploration map and such like that. I do think the Phase 1 maps were good, but overall they just were. They had some difficulty, and yeah, I do like hauling a lot of cargo, so I felt this was a C. I still did enjoy it though. All right, let's move on to the Cosmodrome. Cosmodrome I did enjoy sometimes. I think it got a little bit redundant for the way I played it, just because I was shuttling cargo from Cosmodrome with the metal beams to all the areas in the region, because I just refused to go to Urska River to, this is where I'll actually go in here and explain this one. My reasoning, just so people can have a visual here. So Urska, you have to craft steel up here, right? And getting here, there's a lot of different ways you can. You can go up through here, it sucks getting up here, or you can go this way, go up through here. You can go this way, dive down through, over, and then up through here, or you can do the painstaking process of going all the way around this ice and then through this field of death, and then climbing up into here as well. And it's not fun just to make metal beams. And yes, you get metal beams here, but you do run out. These are not going to supply you throughout the region. However, Cosmodrome, you get metal beams right here in unlimited quantity. So what I did was I would literally have a Zix or a big truck that can pull, you know, 6 pieces of cargo with a hitch. And yes, I did use hitch trailers here a lot because at this point I wasn't using modded trailers, and I would have 2 trucks loaded up with 6 beams and 2 truckloads, and I'd pull these to wherever I needed to go. Even if I had to go over to Cherno to open up the garage, all those passes and stuff like that, but that were blocked, I was doing that. So all my metal beams came from here. I refused to craft. So yeah, I think after, you know, taking these paths nonstop, it just kind of became a little bit redundant. I still felt that it was a hard map. I did rather enjoy it sometimes, but I like maps that you really can use your North American trucks in. So that's just my personal perspective. Okay, so the flooded foothills. Actually, hold up. We still need to do Cherno. So Cherno goes up into B, and I think Urska River goes into C. So as I kind of mentioned with Urska is rather tough. There's a lot of things you have to do. It is a really tough going map. It's kind of like, I think in difficulty wise, I think it goes um of the Amur maps, I think Northern Aegis is the hardest, and I think Urska comes second. And then I think either it's a toss up between Cosmodrome or Cherno based upon your perspective. But Urska, I still had fun with it. The challenge was really cool. I think I did like it. There were just, I think when you're going slow and you're winch running basically for vast periods of time, and it's taking you, an hour, 2 hours to complete one mission. Yeah, I think it kind of can suck the fun out of things, like I've said before. But I did genuinely enjoy the challenge. So even though I did rank it as a C. Okay, let's move on here to A's. Actually, no, we're moving up here. That's right, we're moving from the B category. So in B, I'm gonna put Black Badger up here. I think I enjoyed Black Badger. And this is something I did actually change from my previous tier maker. I had Black Badger Lake up here in A, but after playing it again, I think just all the super mud down there in the western part of the map kind of got on my nerves a little bit because it just took so much to do, especially in like a hard mode setting. I don't know. I think over, not the western side, the eastern side, sorry. I must have been thinking like having the map turned around. I think all these boggy areas kind of made it just difficult. The logistics of it, stuff like that, it just made it a little bit difficult. I did still really enjoy it, which I still rated it a B, but I did think that Great Woods River definitely was ranked higher than this, but I did drop this from my last. Okay, let's move on here. Let's go to the Yukon maps. I think the Flooded Foothills goes up in here. I think Big Salmon Peak go up in here. A lot of cargo being moved. Difficulty is good. I did rank this in a little bit of a moderate fashion, moderate to hard. I did like the cargo moving, the rescuing, worrying about balance. It was like a mixture. I really enjoyed these maps. So I think these were definitely good maps to rank here in the B category. Okay, let's talk about, you know what? I'm going to actually put all of the Phase 8 maps in B because I feel like Saber kind of hit it on the head with the changes and the feedback from the community. I was expecting this to be more like Amur. However, it was totally different. This was basically one of the closer maps. These are basically one of the closer maps to being like the originals, okay? Because they weren't that hard. You could use lesser trucks on them. I was using highway trucks to get around these maps. I think the only reason these maps did not slide up into A or S for me was not how many missions they had, because actually, if you go in here and look at it, which we'll show you right now, when you go in and look at it, it actually has more missions than Amur. So Amur has 103 missions, and then as you can see, the Glades has 107. So there's a ton of missions to do in this region. However, I think what kept this from being an A or an S was two things. Farming was just overbearing. After about 2 missions, I was over it. I think the repeatable farming tasks were too much. The potato mission at the end, we had to do 12 potatoes, was too much. Also, it's a logistical nightmare. You have 2 trailer stores. One is on Crossroads, one is on Heartlands, 3 garages. However, those trailer stores are they're definitely not located in a good area where you have, right outside the garage or such like that, where you can access those. So in that regard, I think it made it, like I said, a little bit more of a logistical nightmare. I think when I get to this on my hardcore playthrough, whenever I start that up again, I'm currently in Greenwoods River, finishing that up. But when I get to this in my hardcore playthrough, it's going to be really hard for me to set up my support, because it's just, I'm going to have trucks everywhere just from moving things around, all these trailers, the farming, getting trucks fed with fuel. It's just going to be, I was thinking about it playing through, and that's basically the reasons why I kept these here. So, okay, let's move on to the A category. These are maps that I enjoyed a lot, and But this is where you might see some changes as well. Let's see. So the lowland, I moved the lowland down from S to A. Just for and it wasn't necessarily because there was something about it I disliked. I think parts of crafting, the garage, and the trailer store, that kind of got, I don't want to say tedious, but if you didn't get to the lowlands and set up your whole fleet to get that whole thing set up, you had to go back to other garages to do that. And if you're in a hardcore playthrough and you don't do this prior to going to the lowland, you have to actually go to another map, redeploy those trucks there, change them, configure them to support doing those missions to get your trailer store and your garage in the state where you can actually do some operations. So I think with having a little bit more of a hardcore mindset in, I did drop this, but I still feel this is really one of my favorite maps in the game. So it definitely stays there high in the A. Grainwoods River, from playing Grainwoods again, man, I really, really love this map. However, I don't think it slides up into the S for me. Just because the only reason it really does slide down here is due to the fact that some other maps just really have taken my heart. But I think Yellow Rock National Forest is a really fun map to play. I like this a lot because here's the thing. I enjoy this because if you understand those routes that I talked about here prior on the map difficulty part of this video, you understand that you can get to some of these areas in this map really, really easily instead of going through all that super mud, the super snow, the cracked ice, stuff like that, where you're, using the Zik 605R to shuttle vehicles across to deliver cargo. You really don't have to do that. I think when I played this through, I thoroughly enjoyed this because I tried to find those routes, and going through the, those forests and those routes that really aren't marked out, man, I think it just made it so much more fun. Even though it didn't have a garage and such like that, it did make it a really fun map for me. So I think the difficulty of trying to find, different ways, different shortcuts, it really was an awesome map for me. So Maine is definitely up there. However, guys, I'm going to say this straight up. I think these maps here take the cake. Whenever I'm just going to place these real quick and then I'll talk about these a little bit. So Drownlands, Ori, Rift, Simnagorsk. So now these are all base game maps. And the reason I think I slid some of the Maine maps and Wisconsin maps down is simply due to, after playing these maps over, I've played probably the base game maps over more than any of these. I played the Flooded Foothills a lot. I played Lake Cove and Amandra a lot too as well, because I got to those areas before my game was deleted. I played Wisconsin twice. I'm going to be playing the Lowlands twice here as well, and Yellow Rock. However, I'm going to be honest, I think the developers did such a good job refining these maps in this game and the base parts of the game, because I think they weren't really rushed getting this out the door. You're going multiple areas of the map. Really, you're not necessarily running to the same parts of the map to get cargo. They take you to different sides of the map, different routes. I'm always really having fun with going in a different direction, getting things from a different area, delivering them to a different area. There's really, I think they just did a good job with the mission layout, the terrain layout, making it still fun to have some of the lesser trucks play, even the scout trucks being friendly. And now, as you guys know, I'm not a huge guy, huge advocate on the scout trucks, but in some of these later maps, especially this one, you really can't use them. They're hard to use, especially the 4x4s. I think the 6x6 trucks, you can definitely get away with them. And the Tatran is essentially your go-to in some of these maps. But in these earlier maps, they're just more scout friendly. And using some of the North American trucks in these earlier maps just feels really, really good. So that's essentially why I rank these higher, because I think it's really easy to just pull out a Russian truck and play with it and hold the gas trigger, because it has always on features. and go through any terrain you want to go through, but I think at a certain point that gets kind of boring because they're so overpowered. So I think any map that you can use a North American vehicle relatively easy is going to steal my heart. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. This is my favorite tier list video for all the maps in the year 1, year 2 pass, and also the hardest maps that I feel that were in a year 1, year 2 pass. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I hope this helped you out. If you want to go check out my comments on my previous tier list video, where I actually go and break down the first year 1 and part of the year 2 pass, which is up to phase 6 maps in a little bit more detail when I actually jump into those maps. Go check out my other tier list. There's a lot more info on those too as well. I really did try to breeze through this in a little bit quicker of a fashion. So if this is long, forgive me guys. I just wanted to try to give you some good information here. So hopefully you guys thought this video was cool and all. Give it a like, subscribe, and as always, God bless and stay upright.